What are the challenges with traffic routing in Kubernetes? I think the first is the number of protocols that you need to support. TCP, HTTP 1 through 3, WebSockets, gRPC. There's all these things that you need, that your teams might be using. Another is just reducing burden on developers in terms of network reliability, load balancing, timeouts, retries, security like cores. There's just a lot of features that you don't want to have them worry about that you can extract out to an API gateway. The way that Emissary Ingress, our CNCF donated project, solves these is by supporting all the major protocols, and we're in fact the only Ingress solution that supports HTTP 3 at the moment. And since we're based on Envoy, and the goal of the project really was to make configuring Envoy as a gateway friendly. And because of that, we have support for really anything that Envoy can do, we can do. Timeouts, retries, Lua filters. If Envoy does it, traffic shadowing, this does it. And so it's a great way to get that feature-rich environment and the pace of Envoy development and the speed and performance of Envoy in a really convenient and nice to configure API gateway. Centralized and decentralized traffic routing. One of the big ideas that Emissary brought to the table in the CNCF versus the Ingress object, with Kubernetes Ingress CRD, everything has to be in the same place. Everything has to be in the same namespace. It's harder to, for developers and for platform teams to sort of co-own that. And Emissary brought this idea of sort of like role-based objects and CRDs. So the platform team or a security team can own what domains should Emissary listen on, own certificate generation, they can own security considerations like cores, but what you don't want is developers who are trying to rapidly launch products waiting on a platform team for a ticket to like, can you please add this route, right? And you don't want platform teams to be bogged down by 79 tickets to add a route. So what we introduced was the concept of a mapping, and a mapping can be installed in any namespace. It can live in the Helm chart alongside an application as it's deployed, and what that does is Emissary will look at all the mappings in any namespace, and as they are introduced, it'll just dynamically reconfigure Envoy with zero downtime reconfiguration and start routing traffic. So developers can move with the speed that they need, and platform is not bogged down by little requests to add routing configuration. And within a mapping, you handle all of the app-related things like, does this need to be able to upgrade? Does it need retries? Or how long should the timeout be? And teams can just move with the efficiency and responsibility that they should have. And you're seeing that now reflected in new standards like the Gateway API. They've adopted that idea of a role-based CRD within an API gateway. Our other project that we've donated to the CNCF is Telepresence. Telepresence is a developer productivity tool, and what the goal of it is really to get, there's two. For developers, it's really to bring back that feeling of like fast local development and to tighten up that dev loop. The most frustrating thing for me as a developer in the Kubernetes and CNCF environment is like, I make a one-line change just to test something, I have to push it up, I have to wait for it to build, I have to deploy it into the cluster. That didn't work. All right, let me roll it back while I'm working on the next change. And what Telepresence does is we put your laptop in the cluster via a two-way proxy. So then my local environment, just however I like to work, my IDE, my debugger, whether I run in Docker or just a local development server, I can just connect that to the cluster. I can reach other resources in there, like a test database that's too big to run on my local machine. And then conversely, I can do something called intercepting, where I run Telepresence intercept, and all traffic that would have been going to my service in the cluster now comes to my laptop. So as a request comes through from one of my downstream services that I support, it just comes right to me. I can instantly see feedback. I can make changes. I can instantly see feedback based on those changes, and just really tighten that developer loop up to just seconds instead of minutes. So we also have a product called Ambassador Cloud, and products built on our CNCF projects. Ambassador Edge Stack is a full-featured API gateway that's based on Emissary, and Telepresence for Teams is a version of Telepresence that offers more features for a busier environment. So with cloud, the goal is to make it easier for, we kind of think of, there are people here at KubeCon who are the vanguard. They're coming here, they're learning, they get deep knowledge of these products and these tools, but then they go back to their teams, and there are people on teams who are like, please just give me a command to run, I just want to get my work done. And so we want to make it easier for developers who come here, platform teams who come here, to evangelize the tools out into their organizations. And Ambassador Cloud makes that easier by providing ways to click through a GUI and just get configuration created for you that you can then implement, seeing all the services in your cluster and knowing what teams are responsible for them and who you should contact if you need to collaborate. If there are open API specifications you have, being able to see those in a portal. Ambassador Edge Stack to Emissary adds on really critical enterprise features like authentication via OpenID and SSO via Google and Okta, those sorts of providers. It also adds rate limiting on a global or service or route-based level. And the ability to automatically get certificates from Let's Encrypt rather than having to create certificates yourself. Telepresence for Teams. The open source version of telepresence can take you really far, but the main limitation of it is that when you intercept a service, all traffic comes to you. So if you know you're working on kind of broken code, you might be interrupting one of your someone that you're an upstream dependency for. Or if I'm working on a service and my coworker's working on a service and my other teammate's working on a service all at the same time, if one of us takes all the traffic, that's no good. So telepresence for Teams allows you to just take my traffic, like my test request, and send it to my laptop. My coworker's test request just goes to their laptop, and we can all work in harmony while getting all the benefits of telepresence. In January, we announced an official partnership with Docker with telepresence, where we are collaborating on a Docker extension within Docker Desktop, which is really exciting because we know Docker has just a 100% focus on developers and the developer experience, and that's also what telepresence is about, is giving developers back a great experience working locally against a remote environment. So that's been really fun. It's been great working with them. I think the thing that's nicest about it is, if you use Docker Desktop, if you are in the Docker ecosystem, then the UX for telepresence becomes even better than, it's already a good one, but it becomes even easier because within Docker Desktop, you grab the extension from the marketplace, and in about 3 clicks, you can have an intercept going based on one of your local containers. So it's been an exciting partnership, an exciting tool to build with them. We're really happy with the improved user experience, and just the mesh of those philosophies has been great. There are just a lot of benefits to adopting our tools. If we look at it from the API gateway perspective, you're going to be more secure just from the fact that we offer the authentication and rate limiting and SSL certificate integrations. I think another place that's less thought of, where we offer really great improvements to security and safety for products in a zero trust environment, is Envoy is a difficult project to keep up with in terms of keeping it upgraded, keeping it configured correctly, and we handle all that for you. As you just update your Ambassador Edge Stack Helm chart, you're always getting the latest version of Envoy. You're always getting those latest security improvements that they've made and feature improvements. In terms of speed improvements as well and efficiency improvements to the teams, it's really about just looking at how much time do developers lose to waiting for another team to get them networking configuration that they could just be doing themselves in a secure way, where they can't affect and break the overall infrastructure of your cluster, because Ambassador is the single entry point, but still allowing them to move really fast. In terms of telepresence, that's a really easy calculation to make in terms of how much it speeds you up. Every minute that it takes to build and deploy a container, a new change into your cluster, if you reduce that to about 5 seconds, that's how much time you save. You multiply that by the number of developers you have and how many changes they're making per day, and it adds up instantly, day one. My favorite experience from this convention has been showing people demos at the telepresence kiosk in the OSS Pavilion and just watching them go, wow, I want to try this. Those are the big improvements we see from a global infrastructure standpoint. It's just way easier to use Edge Stack than a lot of other products, and it speeds up your development teams. And then telepresence is just, the other big benefit for telepresence for like platform teams is when they're integrating in a single environment like that, I used to run a platform team and we spent $80,000 a month on developer infrastructure to give everyone their own namespace or their own cluster. And when you can shrink that down to one environment that everyone shares, it just saves a ton of money as well. I think the most exciting thing coming up in Ingress is the Gateway API. It's been a very hot topic at this conference, and I think it will continue to be. It's sort of the next open standard that the Kubernetes SIG network is creating. And like I said earlier, it is kind of heavily influenced by the ideas we brought with Emissary. Similar to the mappings that we have, there are HTTP routes and gRPC routes that are owned by developers, and there are gateway classes and gateways that are owned by platform teams. We are on the steering committee for Envoy Gateway, which is a implementation of Envoy specifically for gateways that will implement the Gateway API. And we're bringing our ideas from Emissary to that as well. We are committed to supporting Gateway API in EdgeStack as it moves forward, so that with EdgeStack you are always going to get the benefits of the latest features of the ecosystem and know that you are staying up to date and on the cutting edge. I'm excited to see where that goes. I think we're still in early days with the Gateway API, but it's the most exciting thing for me happening right now in the Ingress space.